Hey there, Terry here. Just a quick announcement that if you like giving voice to depression, you might also like my new podcast, Recoverable. On it, I will be asking experts the top 10 most searched questions about different addictions and mental health conditions and therapies. Look for Recoverable wherever you get your podcasts. Hello and welcome to the Giving Voice to Depression podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, the best place to find mental health and addiction treatment for anyone, anywhere.
Each week, we profile a guest who shares openly about their mental health journey. They share because they understand that when people don't talk about their depression or other mental health conditions, those of us who do struggle with them can feel like we're the only ones, that there's something wrong with us, and that no one understands. We understand.
I'm Terry McGuire, the creator and co-host of this podcast. You have my promise that we'll keep it real here. Depression is real, and we're not going to sugarcoat our discussions about it.
Hope is also real, and you'll get a dose of that here too. I'm Carly McCollow, a licensed social worker and educator, and Terry's daughter. We've both experienced depression and also support loved ones struggling with it. We're here to normalize talking about depression and mental health in our communities, as well as our families.
And to share real-world tested strategies that have worked for other people who have walked similar paths. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Mom.
Hi, Carly. Today we continue our look back at what we've learned from producing 500 episodes of this podcast. Not in a self-congratulatory way, but with a deep appreciation for what it means that a podcast about depression is one of the longest-running podcasts on the planet.
It means that the experience many of us have in darkness and isolation changes when given voice and brought into the light. It means that hundreds of people, many who have never spoken publicly about their depression, were willing to share their story to connect with others who are feeling deep sadness, anger, despair, or nothing at all. It means we are not alone.
We are joined in this discussion by Dr. Anita Sanz, who co-hosted hundreds of these episodes. Bridget, who started the podcast with me in 2017, was featured earlier last month. Please listen as we give voice to depression. Let's talk about some of the lessons we have learned, and Anita, as a psychologist, you probably knew them, and Carly, as a social worker, you know a lot of them too. I didn't. So are there any lessons that you learned from guests that help you manage your own mental health, whether or not you experience depression? I'll start because I knew I was going to ask the question while you guys think. But one is the need to understand we're trying to manage this disorder and not cure it. When you're in it, you think you'll never get out because it's one of the things it tells you. But also when you're out, I think I'll never go back. And I think it's one of the reasons I didn't recognize it when I did. That might be the experience for somebody listening as well. But I really think it helps me to treat it like the same way I would if my throat starts getting sore. So I need to take care of this, and I sleep more, and I drink more water, and I have all the things I have. I now do that with my mental health. I go, ooh, 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 ooh. You know, I think we need to learn our early warning signs, and I think we need to heed them because that slope is steep and it gets slipperier the closer you get to the edge. I know that I need to stop myself up here where I still have some footing and say, I need to do these things, which may or may not include increasing my meds, like you said earlier, Carly, or seeing my therapist more often, or just there's no just there, taking care of myself.
Yeah, that management piece is so critical. And like you said, how do we develop that early warning detection system so that we aren't in it and then have to dig out more? Yeah, like you're saying, if I'm sliding on the slope, when can I dig in my heel and just, okay, I'm not great, but I'm not sliding anymore right now. And having those check-ins with yourself the way that you would with your team at work or with your kids in their report cards. But you don't want to wait until the end of the semester. You don't want to wait till the end of the quarter to go, oh my God, what happened here? So on a weekly basis, what are your warning signs? And then let's take a look at those. The management piece and the prevention piece, I think, go together. I think when they're working really well, they go together. Another wrinkle on the management piece, because I remember Wally, because he was a guest who doesn't fit sort of that narrative. Okay, I had depression and then I got better and life is good and I'll look for when those warning signs come up. But no, he had treatment resistant, unrelenting, daily suicidal ideation depression. I learned a lot because, again, I come from that perspective of how are we going to get this better? How are we going to make this better? And so to truly, even though I suffer from chronic illnesses, and yes, they do remit, they get better, they get worse. But to have a guest who just said, every day I wake up, it's going to be at a 9 or 10, on that scale in terms of how bad and severe my depression is. And so how do I show up every day with that? How do I do that? He didn't have anything mind-blowing in terms of just do this. I think he literally made the goal, I'm going to show up every day. I'm just going to show up every day. That's my goal for today. And to realize that he is successfully managing something that is really in those severe extreme ranges by just showing up. Just saying, I don't have to do more. I don't have to get better. He didn't put any other expectations on himself. And I love that we had that story amongst many, many stories, which were more aimed at, this is what happened. This is how I got out of it. Or, this is what I need to do when I am really bad. Because he was that voice of, it's always really bad.
Yeah.
It's always really bad. And so how do I not lose hope? How do I not give up when it's this bad pretty much every day? And I got a lot out of that. I think we move into places of stress and chaos in the world where it can feel like that every day waking up. And to go back to his strategy, I'm just going to show up. I'm just going to show up. Nothing else. Just going to show up. But that was kind of everything.
And I remember the episode on dysthymia or chronic persistent depression. That's sort of the further way on the other end of the spectrum, where it's a milder form of depression, but it is constant. And the guest we interviewed had it for a very long time and had to manage herself and her life and her expectations differently because of it. And people can think, oh, but it's mild, and just sort of blow it off. And it was every day as well.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been interesting to realize how many different presentations and experiences of depression there are, because I sort of thought it was mine, I was like, oh, so you get depressed and you just kind of go down, you go under, you withdraw, you are flat, I feel nothing. Then it's like, oh, some people are angry. Oh, I didn't realize anger could be a symptom of depression. Of course, you think Eeyore, because that's the stereotype. So, of course, some people are sad. But there's so many different experiences of it and ways to manage it and ways to articulate, if you are able to, the experience. That has been very eye-opening for me. And it has made me, I think, a much more compassionate person, because I realize, when someone cuts me off on the road and flips me the bird or something, I no longer just think jerk. I might, but I also think, oh, wonder what you're going through. I wonder why that bothered you. That has been one of the key lessons I've learned with this. Is it's just like, this is not a one-size-fits-all illness, or the things that work for us are not going to be the same things that work for someone else, or even us tomorrow or yesterday. The power of community. Let's shift to that, because we haven't talked about our Facebook. We haven't shouted out Sarah. And Anita, you brought up Rosaline.
Yes, which actually dovetails very nicely with that you didn't realize how anger could be an expression of it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, because Rosaline was absolutely, she just blasted
me.
You. Right, yeah. Exactly. And then you sort of gently challenged to kind of put that out there. And then she was the recipient of that beautiful response from the Facebook community. And she woke up the next morning and had all of those messages of support and said it had changed something. It had healed something in her, and that she wanted to live because of their kindness.
Oh, and I'm like choked up.
Such a beautiful thing. Oh, to me, that's something I think about pretty much every week. I think back to that and the power of connection, community. But even more than that was her willing to take that risk to be vulnerable, which came after a very non-vulnerable, aggressive attack about, I can't even remember what her major complaint.
I do. I want to do the background, and then I want to hear more of this because somebody else isn't going to know this. But I'd done an episode with someone whose parents had bipolar disorder that was untreated, and it impacted her a lot. And Rosaline was in a place that when she heard it, she was like, don't blame me, because she also had bipolar disorder. And she came at me hard. And I happened to have been in a good enough place that I was able to say, hey, are you okay? Mm-hmm. And she said no. And so I asked, can we post on our Giving Voice to Depression Facebook community page that you need some support, that you need some love? Yeah. And she said, yes, but it's not going to help. It's stupid. You're stupid. She was not in a good place. Yeah. And I said, can I do it anyway? Post it. One of us is struggling. Show some love. And it was an outpouring. So back to your story. Sorry, I just wanted to give the background.
Yeah. Yeah. Then she came on as a guest and talked about it, the space that she was in when she was so angry and feeling like nothing was going to help, and taking that, maybe it seemed like a little risk or a big risk to her, but I would think of it as a big risk to put out that somebody is struggling. And then to see what happens when we really see we're not alone. I mean, because I think so much of the podcast is about, you're not alone. But when you get hundreds of messages from people, and she even said it was just the emojis and the hearts that actually were the most powerful. It wasn't even words.
She was crying too hard to be able to read the words.
Yes. So the power was just seeing literally the icon for love and care and compassion and support keep coming up. And it overwhelmed that part of her that I think was trying to hold herself together with the anger, and then fully allowed that release and allowed that to come in. And then she talked about it changed something. It healed something in me.
Beautiful.
Yeah, just beautiful. And of course, we wish that kind of an experience, for every person. Mm-hmm. Just even knowing that it's possible and helping people find the ways to ask for what they need, to ask for that level of, do you love me? Am I lovable? Even though I can't do any of these things anymore, getting into those real conversations and allowing the love in, allowing that healing energy in.
There have been a number of these. And Carly, these happened before you were part of this, but you may have heard the episodes. I'm just totally blanking on his name right now. I think his wife is Anna Claire. But he wrote that he was suicidal. And same thing. I asked, can I ask the community to support you? And lots of people did. And they wrote beautiful things, and they sent the emojis. And what was especially significant or very interesting to me was that he was reading these in the emergency room of the psychiatric hospital. And his wife reached out and said, I'm so grateful that was happening, because what do you say? Like, I didn't know how to fill that time. And he would be reading these out loud. And one was a woman wrote, like, you're not alone. Think of us in your pocket, whatever pocket you have. We're in there, and we've got all this love for you. I read that and was like, that is not something I would respond well to. But he clung to it. And he said he never felt alone. And it was maybe a year later that he reached out and told me he wrote a song with those words, that you're not alone. Oh, I get teary thinking about it, because all these other people who wrote those things, they're depressed, or they probably wouldn't be on a Facebook depression page. And they're using their experience and their maybe secret as a superpower. Mm-hmm. It's like, I can connect with you because I know what that's like. And it made a difference. Mm-hmm. And those are things that I wouldn't have guessed. Bridget and I were, when we started it was like, one person, if we can reach one person, if we can reach one person. And then these things happen. And it's just beautiful. Mm-hmm. Especially in this very world that is so divisive, at a time that's this divisive. It's still happening every day. Somebody writes something and someone else writes back and says, been there, hold on, sister, whatever it might be. Oh.
Yeah, we really can be there for each other. And I think those things definitely make it shine through. That will stay with me. Mm-hmm. It has stayed with me.
Me too.
I would like to underline one thing about Rosaline's story, which is she said she couldn't read the words because she was crying. But I think in general, when we panic, we either run out of words or we get hyperverbal. We use way too many words. And so in general, I think it would behoove all of us to move more into the visual. I think that there is something about an emoji that is a symbol without any language that we just get, you feel it, right? A lot of this experience is outside of language. And when we're really struggling, having to find the words can be an extra demand on our brains that we don't have to be making. We've overinflated the importance of having words. And I hope that we understand the value of the heart and the emojis in Rosaline's story, because I think it is not that they are less. And I think sometimes people use an emoji on social media because they don't know the words, but that doesn't mean it's less valuable.
There are just so many things that we can do for ourselves and for each other that don't take a lot of time, that don't take any money, and that make a world of difference. Let's pivot to a takeaway. Somebody who listens in general to the podcast. What do we hope most that they take away?
Well, I mean, getting very, very basic. You're not alone. There's help. There's hope. And we care. Very, very simple, but all of those episodes come from that. You didn't want people to feel alone. You wanted people to be able to talk about this real thing that they were struggling with, because millions and millions of people struggle with it. You didn't want them to feel like there's nothing out there that we can bring to bear on this to help you manage it or to achieve some level of recovery from that. And you didn't want people to be hopeless. You didn't want to be stuck, whether it was thinking that I'm all alone or nothing's going to ever work, but to always say, you know, maybe not this one, maybe not this episode, maybe not this technique, maybe not this particular thing, but hang in there. There's always hope. There's going to be something. There's going to be someone. There's going to be something. When I think of giving voice to depression, in addition to all of those details that we talked about, my basics that I come away with that I would want anyone to come away is you're not alone. There's help. There's hope. And we care.
What is your takeaway, Carly?
I know that we have listeners who are listening because they themselves have experiences that feel like depression, whether or not it's been diagnosed. And for all of that, I want to just remind folks that feelings and emotions are information. They're information, and most of us weren't taught about them that way. So whatever you are experiencing, it's trying to tell you something. Also, one of the things that we believe in social work is that people's wellness is about the person in the environment. And a lot of times, the environment can be depressing. And so there are times in which depression is giving us information about our environment. And there's something broken inside of me. It's giving us information about how we really feel about the circumstances we're living in, the world we're living in. And then lastly, I think something you've done such a beautiful job of demonstrating by modeling it from day one is that supporting folks through hard times, whether depression or grief or loss or all the above or anything, you don't need to be a clinician to do it. They should not be skills that are only professionalized. These are human ways of supporting one another. And when we talk about community, it's about showing up. And we all have a role to play in the wellness of the people around us. And that's what I mean by community. And if the only people we're looking to support people having a hard time are paid mental health professionals, that's not something the system was built for. It's not something mental health professionals were built for. It's not sustainable, and it's not accessible to so many people. So we have to find what our role is.
You're absolutely right, Carly. And one of the great things about this podcast is how I think it has increased emotional literacy and teaching people through the language, through the stories, how we can be there for each other. And you're exactly right. It should not be just therapists or trained professionals who are supposed to somehow know how to be there for someone who's struggling. That should be all of us with anybody that we come across. Mm-hmm. And that's the part of this podcast that I love the most. Is it is so human. It is so pro-humanity. It is so pro-compassion and empathy towards others and to ourselves, which to me are just, when Terry, you said that things can change and things can get better, that would be why. Mm-hmm. that would be the why it can get better.
Aww.
And some of those emotional literacy skills that is modeled most by you, Mom, in your interviews is how meaningful, I won't say healing, being heard is. Mm-hmm. And that the skill there is listening, mm-hmm. not having the answers, not necessarily knowing how to respond. And also the power of questions and genuine curiosity. I want to know about your experience. If we root in listening and curiosity, it's very hard for that to go wrong. Mm-hmm. When we root in judgment and having to have answers and saying trite phrases to each other and telling you what works for me or making it about me or showing you that I feel uncomfortable about, that is where it goes off the tracks. But one thing that you have modeled, you can hear in the interviews and the trust that you've earned with folks who share their stories with us, is that you listen and you ask curious questions mm-hmm. that show that you're listening. And that's the game. That's mm-hmm. the game. That's all of it. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, that is something that some professions have been specifically trained how to do. Doesn't mean we're always good at it. Right. That is something that grandmas have been doing forever. Neighbors have been doing forever. An auntie, a cousin, a best friend, a religious advisor, that is humanity. And that is something that you have modeled, is your curiosity and your openness to connect with other people. And that is also meaningful.
Thanks. I often say, don't let not knowing what to say stop you from saying anything. Because even if you say, I have no idea what to say, I've never had depression and I don't know what you're experiencing, tell me about it. That's the openness and the curiosity. What are you feeling? What is it like? What do you need? How can I support you? We can all do that. Mm-hmm. I'm just going to straight up call somebody out and say, if you don't think you can, you're wrong. It's not that hard. It can be a little uncomfortable, certainly unfamiliar, and maybe a little scary. I certainly was scared when I started working at the crisis line, but it's how we let someone know we care and that they can trust us with their answers. And the other thing I was going to add is to remember that you are not a burden to anyone. I know it's hard to not be your best and to not want to show people this side of you. But another line from a guest, a lot of us are hiding the same secret from each other. So you might say to me, you know what, I have these thoughts, I can't get out of bed, I haven't showered in days, and I go, I haven't either. And all of a sudden, we're there. If you're not sure who to talk to because you're afraid of the response, one way I've learned from a guest was to approach it from, I heard this song, I read this article, I listened to this podcast. They were talking about depression and said some people can't get out of bed for days, or some people have thoughts that they should end their life and the world would be better without them. And if the person says, well, God, that's messed up, they're not your person. If they say, yeah, I hear that's really common, mm-hmm. or I feel that way sometimes, that's your person. Continue that conversation because it's a safe space.
Yeah. I think that's the other piece of not alone, the belief that you're connected to something else. Mm-hmm. And that something else for some people has been the Giving Voice to Depression Facebook group, has been those hearts, has been the millions of other people who are having an experience that relates to the one that you're having. Just sort of being able to feel the mm-hmm. thread of connection to others mm-hmm. is really big. Just sort of imagining that you are a part of a network mm-hmm. and you're a piece of it is really key.
It is, because I think, one of those things that depression really does tell you is that you don't belong. You don't belong here. And so that, encapsulating by saying you're not alone, you're right, Carly, you're getting to that sense of a bigger sense of connection and community. But regardless of what you're struggling with, you belong and you belong here. And that's a message that has come out of so many of the episodes and so many of the guests and out of the co-host mouths as well. We belong here. You belong here. It is a sense of being together in all of this.
And if you haven't explored the online community that exists, it is a brave space for folks to feel a part of that community. It's a Facebook community, and there is a very important member of the Giving Voice to Depression team who has been keeping that together for years.
Sarah, thank you. Every person who makes a comment gets some reaction, so you know it's a real person. Real people are there and hear you and see you, and your voice matters, the same as we're trying to exemplify with Giving Voice to Depression. So if you go to the Facebook community page, if you're on the other platforms, we post daily and have since we started. So I want to thank you both very much. Anita, you co-hosted for years. Carly, you're new, but you're in it. And Bridget, for the first 5 years. Thank you to you all. Thank you to anyone and everyone who's listening and has over the past 9 years. We're doing this for you because we know it's just too dark a path to walk alone. And the guests, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing your stories. Thank you for trusting us with your stories. Thank you for knowing how important it is to be heard and to have something to listen to that lets you know that this experience is not a personal failing of yours.
Thank you for listening and for sharing this milestone with us. We'll be back next week, as we have been for the past 500 consecutive weeks. Take care of yourselves and each other. We really hope that this discussion helps give some language or context to your own depression or ideas for how to support someone else in your life living with it. We invite you to check out the hundreds of episodes in our archive and to explore both the Resource Hub and treatment options on recovery.com. Depression is too dark a road to walk alone.
We'll be back next week.